After a year-long investigation into safety gaps at hospitals across Texas, lawmakers are hearing from the team behind the reporting. This week, on Inside the Investigation, KXAN Investigator Matt Grant explains the momentum behind a bill that would require safety bollards at nearly every hospital in the state, and why one hospital advocacy group does not want to see it pass. Matt, welcome to Inside the Investigation. How are you?
Kelly, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. You have had a big week. You're continuing to have a busy week. You testified at the Capitol earlier on Senate Bill 660. This is a bill that would require safety bollards at almost every hospital in the state, and it's all because of your reporting. How did that go?
Well, this was actually the second time that I've testified in front of this same Senate committee, Health and Human Services, in the Senate chamber, which is a big deal. And you would think, having done this once before, that I'd be used to it, but no, it's still very nerve-wracking. I don't know that anyone really would get used to that, and it's not something we get to do often. But
no, not at all.
No, but it is nice to see lawmakers taking an interest in the work we've been doing and our reporting and continued investigations over the past year. Remember, this all started back February 13th of last year when a drunk driver crashed into the ER lobby of St. David's North Austin Medical Center. The driver was killed. 5 people were injured, including all 4 members of the Bernard family. And that kicked off our Preventing Disaster series of investigations, where we really took a deep dive into how could something like this have happened and could it have been prevented? And that took us out to College Station, where we went to the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. We got to see firsthand how crash-rated bollards can make a difference, how they can stop the impact of a speeding vehicle traveling 20 miles per hour or greater. And so we took those findings to lawmakers. That resulted in some policy changes in Austin, and now a bill that, if it's passed, would require those bollards statewide.
And really, you've had practice, so much practice explaining the root of all of this reporting. And it was impressive to see you fit all of that into what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, we only
testimony?
I mean, they could have asked us questions if they wanted to, but we only had 2 minutes. So I had to try to synthesize everything we've been doing over the last 13 months into a very quick testimony, but tried to get as much in as we could.
Well, let's listen to it right now.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Matt Grant, an investigative reporter with KXAN, and today I'm speaking on Senate Bill 660 and a series of reports we produced over the last 13 months. On February 13th, 2024, a driver who was drunk, according to the toxicology report, crashed into the lobby of St. David's North Austin Medical Center, killing herself and seriously injuring 5 others, including Levi and Nadia Bernard and their 2 toddlers. An ongoing KXAN investigation called Preventing Disaster has found more than 400 crashes into or at medical centers across the country over the past decade. Using data from the nonprofit Storefront Safety Council, along with TxDOT, police, EMS, and media reports, we built our own database. The crashes we found include incidents in College Station, Navasota, and Fort Worth last year. Security industry experts say these can be prevented with crash-rated safety bollards. We watched crash tests at Texas A&M's Transportation Institute, and we saw firsthand how a steel bollard can stop the equivalent of a Dodge Ram pickup truck traveling 20 miles per hour compared to an unrated concrete post that just snapped in half. St. David's North did install bollards after we started asking questions, but the hospital will not tell us if they are rated to stop a similar incident. Here in Austin, local leaders viewed the deadly crash in our reporting as motivation to bring about change. In December, the City Council approved an ordinance requiring crash-rated bollards at new medical facilities and existing ones that expand. But without a uniform statewide approach, we found a patchwork system where some hospitals are protected while others remain vulnerable. To see our complete coverage, go online to kxan.com/preventing-disaster or scan the QR code on the printed testimony that we're providing you. I am available to answer any questions, and I want to thank you for this time and the opportunity to speak.
Powerful to be able to bring your reporting in front of lawmakers. During this hearing, sitting right next to you was former council member Mackenzie Kelly. She talked in favor of this bill, and we should be clear, you talked on this bill, not in favor or against. But we also heard from the Texas Hospital Association, which has publicly stated that they are not in favor. What is their reasoning?
Yeah, so to back up for a second, so the way this all came about, Senator Royce West from Dallas, his office had contacted me and said they wanted me to testify about our reporting as an expert witness. Mackenzie Kelly, former Austin City Council member, was also asked to testify as an expert witness. So it was the two of us together. And yes, we testified on the bill, which, as you mentioned, means we are neutral on it. But we were just bringing forward the facts of our reporting in case lawmakers had any questions about it, and so they could hear firsthand what we found. Mackenzie Kelly, she's the one who introduced the ordinance in Austin that requires crash-rated security bollards at new hospitals and existing ones that expand. So they were also really interested in hearing from her, and it's a bipartisan issue. Senator West is a Democrat, Mackenzie Kelly is a Republican, and one of the points she raised in her testimony was this is not a partisan issue, it's a safety issue. The Texas Hospital Association, on the other hand, which represents 85% of acute care hospitals in the state, they are strongly opposed to this bill. Their reasoning is they feel like it's an unfunded mandate. They've called it an administrative cost burden, misguided, well-intentioned, but misguided, they've said. And they feel like really it should be up to individual hospitals to make these determinations on their own, that they are best, in their opinion, equipped to determine, the layout of their hospital, their need, their security concerns, and that it shouldn't be forced upon them by the government, that they should make those determinations on their own. What we found, though, is that absent a state requirement, it's really, as I mentioned, it's a patchwork system because we surveyed more than 35 hospitals in Central Texas. Some have them, some don't. St. David's North only installed bollards after the deadly incident and after our questions. So there are no local, state, or federal levels, except for in Austin, that would require crash-rated bollards at critical infrastructure like hospitals. But ultimately, yes, the THA says that it should be up to each individual hospital to make that determination on their own, and that especially for smaller hospitals, it would be too costly for them to implement compared to larger hospitals like a St. David's Healthcare, for example, that may be more easily to afford them.
Well, let's listen into their testimony here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Steve Wallop with the Texas Hospital Association, here on behalf of our membership, respectfully testifying against Senate Bill 660. I was interested in that part of the layout too, Madam Chair, and I'm not familiar with those incidents, and we've been trying to track down information about it in the last 4 hours and haven't been able to, so we're going to see what we can find out. But we do appreciate the opportunity that Senator West had given us to work with his office and discuss with his office our concerns about the bill. Safety is paramount to Texas hospitals. We're one of the most heavily regulated industries in the country, and hospitals follow hundreds of state and federal safety standards every day, everything from infection control to architectural standards. Certainly the incident at the North Austin Hospital was tragic, and no other way to put it, but while the data is elusive, what we've been able to find out indicates that incidents involving hospitals are only a small fraction of those types of accidents, with retailers and other storefront type businesses making up by far the majority of those accidents. Singling out hospital emergency rooms to install bollards would not prevent, based on the statistics we're aware of, the overwhelming majority of these types of accidents because they simply don't occur in hospitals. It could certainly, though, impact patient care negatively. Large hospitals like the one in North Austin certainly have the means to install protective barriers, but not every hospital does, whether it's because of finances, physical layout, existing physical layout, or other factors. Hospitals, should and do, in fact, and we heard during the layout that some hospitals do already have these protective barriers installed. I believe over half of the ones that were surveyed at the time do have them, and hospitals should be allowed to continue to sort of assess for themselves the physical layout of the emergency department, traffic flow, road design, other factors that are going to be unique to every hospital, rather than implementing a one-size-fits-all mandate on a single industry that doesn't, to our knowledge, pose a greater safety risk to the public than many other types of businesses. Thank you.
That was Steve Wallab. I want to make sure I get his title right. He is the Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Legal and Regulatory Compliance for the Texas Hospital Association. Sitting to his right on your screen left, that was Ware Wendell. He is founder of Texas Watch, which is a local nonprofit consumer advocacy group. And he was testifying in strong favor of the bill and had publicly thanked us for our reporting.
Senator Kolkhorst, at the very end of that, she mentioned that she thinks there is some sort of compromise between how this bill is currently written and also addressing the hospital association's concerns. What would a compromise look like, you think? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, we'll have to see, but she did say that she wants to try to find a way to land this, so that, that is encouraging for people who are supporters of the bill. You got to know, this was a marathon day. This was a long session. So right around when they were testifying, that was about 9:00 at night.
Oh, wow.
And we got to go, Mackenzie Kelly and I got to go earlier in the day. It was probably around like 4:00. So they did invited testimony first, then they went through like a dozen other bills, and then they circled back to Senate Bill 660, the Bollard bill, and that's when anyone who had registered to testify could speak, and that's when Texas Hospital Association got to go. So it was a marathon long day, and by the time they heard, from Texas Hospital Association, they had already heard from everybody who had testified previously on it. And so they were the last ones to go. And you heard what Chair Kolkhorst said, right? I mean, let's try to find a way to land this thing. In terms of a compromise, Senator West has already put forward a measure in addition to his bill, which would create a carve-out exception for rural hospitals. And so there was a little back and forth about how do you define rural based on like population size. But that was one of the arguments that the Texas Hospital Association had raised, is that it would be too costly for some smaller hospitals. And so that, I think, was done in an attempt to try to, take away at least one of their concerns and try to inch the bill a little bit closer. In terms of what other compromises could be made, we'll have to see. I don't know, where they'll be able to meet in the middle on this, if they even will be able to meet in the middle on this. But, supporters are hoping that they will.
So we know the Hospital Association is against the bill. What about the other stakeholders, St. David's in particular?
Well, we only know what their opinion is on this publicly, which is pretty neutral. St. David's in the past has said that they don't comment on pending legislation, so they are not commenting on this officially, other than they've told us previously that they will follow any new rules and regulations that are passed. So we don't know privately how St. David's feels, but publicly they're neutral. We did reach out to other medical groups, the Texas Medical Association and the Texas Nurses Association, and while neither organization has endorsed this bill, leadership of both organizations have spoken pretty positively about it.
Okay. And so, the session is moving right along. What comes next here? So it's had this hearing. What should we expect to happen next?
Well, I anticipate lawmakers will be looking over our reporting and the data that we found about the number of crashes. So I think that will be taken into consideration, and along with the testimony, and this is something that's going to be discussed. The bill was left pending, so that's pretty standard. And so right now, the next step is the committee will have to, if the bill is to go forward, right, they could reject it, or it could move forward. And if it moves forward, they'd have to vote it out of committee. Then it would go to the full Senate for a vote. And then if it passes the Senate, then it would go over to the House for their review. So it's got a number of hurdles to go, but the biggest step right now is that it would need to be voted out of committee. And right now it's pending. So we're just waiting to see what the next steps are.
It's been so interesting to watch all the twists and turns of this investigation, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next. But thank you so much for joining us and for giving more insight into your reporting. For those of you listening or watching, we appreciate you. Don't forget to join us next Friday at 10:30 for a new episode of Inside the Investigation. And remember, you can now listen to our show wherever you get podcasts. Just search KXAN's Investigative Podcast. There will also highlight our award-winning team's latest reports exposing corruption, safety concerns, and system failures across Texas. See you next time.